Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. Today we are talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, and this is going to be a full spoiler review, so be ready for that. Sorry that we're virtual today. I am in San Diego for Comic-Con, and so naturally couldn't lug a whole lot of equipment with me without paying a lot of money that I do not have. So, Nicholas, how are you doing?
I'm good. Not as good as you, man. I've just been getting news on Twitter. You're living it.
Living it up as much as I can, and we are going to make a video about the Hall H announcements, which Hannah and I were in the room for. That's coming to you in the roundtable tomorrow. But for now, Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm gonna,
And Wolverine.
yes, I'm gonna start this one off, Nicholas.
Go on.
I really like this fucking movie. I like it a whole ton. It's not perfect. This definitely has some issues, but I've seen a lot of just vitriol, like hate for this movie on Twitter. I mean, Twitter is also like an absolute hellscape, so that's not indicative of X. Yeah, it's not indicative of actual what people think, considering the A Cinema score and the record-breaking opening weekend that it's having. But yeah, I was just still surprised of just like, wow, like people think this is like the worst piece of shit that's
And
ever happened.
a 3.7 average on Letterboxd currently. I
Yeah,
just pulled that up.
yeah, and it's like people are acting like this movie personally offended them, and I feel like there's nothing in the movie to suggest that. But yeah, we'll get into it. But before we like really dive into specifics, give me like your kind of general thoughts.
Yeah, I mean overall I really enjoyed it. I'm hesitant to say that it's my favorite of the Deadpools yet. I don't know. I really like the second one. I don't know why. Something always stuck with me about it, but just right from the opening, I was like, oh wow, Marvel really let them go for that R rating. And as the movie progressed, I thought maybe it was going to be front loaded, but no, they let them maintain that level throughout the whole movie. Again, I think it has its story issues and everything aside, but I think overall the most important thing out of it is that it was fun. We're coming out of this, the term superhero fatigue gets tossed around a lot. And I was even looking back at Marvel Phase 5 thus far. And I really like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think that is genuinely one of their best movies that they've done recently. And that and this one are looking at them, I'm like, man, I had fun at this.
Hmm.
Like I enjoyed, it has its flaws, it has its issues, right? So did the Marvels, but like Marvels, you could go, depending on the day, different weird. I'm like, this was a fun time at the movies, and it's a superhero movie, so what do you want?
Yeah, and like not only that, to me it was made with genuine heart. And like I mentioned this in the spoiler-free review. I do think that the third act has problems, and I think that it really loses steam once they leave the void. And
Mm.
it picks it
Like
back
the whole
up.
Deadpool core type thing, that
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah, because that sequence to me, and I mentioned this in the review that like there's a sequence that had a lot of buildup that just like I didn't really care about. And
Yeah.
like to me, and we can get a little bit into spoilers now. First of all, love the Wolverine mask, obviously, but it coming out in the Deadpool core scene and not the sequence where all of the Fox characters were fighting at Cassandra. I'm like, that's where you pull out the mask. Like that's where the mask comes out, like not the
Yeah.
Deadpool core scene. And I think the Deadpool core scene, its placement in the movie was wrong. I feel like that scene should have happened much earlier because
Hmm.
it felt like it was supposed to be a very climactic thing and it didn't feel that way. Like that when I say like I had problems with the third act, like that's what I'm really referring to. I think the movie did kind of save itself at the very end, but that sequence was really I was just like, this is an oddly placed thing. It reminded me, and please don't come after me, internet. It reminded me of the Quicksilver scene from X-Men Apocalypse. The scene itself, great. Where it happens in the movie, horrible. And I feel very similar about this sequence.
Well, I almost feel like if they were there, right, and they're working kind of semi with Cassandra Nova, right, that kind of went unclear.
Hmm.
And if you really weren't going to place a lot of emphasis on the returning X-Men characters, like, you had like you had Juggernaut, right? You had one shot of someone who's supposed to be the Blob. You had the girl who has the giant fingernails,
Hmm.
Toad,
Deathstrike.
Deathstrike, Toad, you have these characters and they were there and it was fun to see them. But like even in that fight with all the Fox characters, it didn't have its like moment.
Hmm.
Like I felt like each of them didn't have like like why did we bring this person here? So it almost feels like maybe they should have just had the whole Deadpool core be her people
Yeah.
and just cut out that, just you're meeting different versions of Deadpool in the void.
Yeah. And that's not a bad idea. I going into the Fox characters, dude, I loved all of them. I loved every single one of them. And I so let's start kind of in order with them. Human Torch, Johnny Storm, played by Chris Evans. As soon as I saw him, as soon as I saw him, I was like, he's the fucking Human Torch. Like I know they tried
Yeah.
to trick you out with like the red in his cloak, but as soon as I saw him, and honestly, this is a testament to Chris Evans. It was in the performance. It was how
Hmm.
he was carrying himself and how he was speaking. I'm like, he's being Johnny Storm right now. And
And
I
the
literally,
slapstick comedy of him
yes,
crashing and getting hit in the didn't he get hit in the balls like every
yeah,
movie?
yeah. And I loved the post credit scene when it reveals that like he actually said all that stuff. That was hysterical. But like,
His rant was very the Knives Out. He brought out a little bit of these like she's a megalomaniacal
yeah,
maniac.
yeah. It was great. And I love the joke when he dies and Deadpool's like, do you know what he was doing to our budget? Like that was hysterical. But like I thought that Chris Evans did really well because
Mhm.
literally his main job was to give people exposition on the Void who just haven't seen Loki. Like and it
Yeah.
worked. Like it worked pretty well. And I love the joke of is that Elia from Loki season 1 episode 5? That was
Hmm.
great. And like so that was obviously really fun to see. Dude,
Did you like were you speculating in your mind like my mind when they were like it's the hooded figure? I'm thinking who the hell could and they showed like the red and blue and like even with the dialogue, I was not even thinking Chris Evans or like Captain America. I'm like trying to pick the voice. I'm like, did you have any ideas who it was going to be like leading up to it?
so
Because I
no,
didn't know it right until he pulled the hood off. I was like, oh, and then immediately I was like, oh, he's going to be Human Torch. But I was like,
yeah, no, same. I didn't recognize the voice. I wasn't
yeah,
prepared. I was just kind of like, all right, who's it gonna be? So question, you had the luxury of seeing this with an opening night crowd. I didn't
hmm.
get to. I had to see it at a dumb press screening. But what was the reaction like for Human Torch? Like when he said flame on and took off?
It was pretty big. You could see that there was a little bit of confusion. Like there was a silent hesitation. Like, oh, we're doing a Captain America variant. And then as soon as he said "flame on," the theater just went crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And dude, as a what I was gonna say a second ago, as a comic book fan, like Pyro sucking the fire from Human Torch, I was like, fuck yeah. Like,
Yeah,
this is awesome.
just so casually too.
Yeah, yeah. And dude, I thought Aaron Stafford did really good in the movie. I thought he was really good.
Yeah.
Um,
But see, like,
I
and again, it felt like he was justified in bringing back, and it was like, what were all the other mutants up to?
yeah, and so backpedaling a little bit, the bye 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 opening dance sequence, incredible. And
Yeah,
dude, him using Logan's corpse to kill the TVA members was so fucking funny. Oh, it was so good.
yeah. It literally, there was a little bit of meta comedy. He literally defiled the grave for money,
Yeah,
which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, no, just the whole him fighting TVA with the adamantium was so good.
it was so good. And I also loved the sequence when he just randomly goes to the MCU in 2018 and he's talking to Happy Hogan. That was lovely.
So when the camera started to pivot around, I thought it was going to be the Kevin robot from She-Hulk.
That would have been good.
Someone pointed out a cool detail during that scene. They have in the background there's the Iron Man helmet,
Mhm,
but it's the kid from Iron Man 2 that they retconned and says Peter Parker.
mhm.
It's that helmet, and it's blocking a photo of Peter from it, which I thought was interesting. People don't know who Peter is and everything.
Well,
I
see,
mean, it does beg the question: why does Happy have a photo of a random kid he doesn't know in his
see,
office? But
I didn't even get that people don't know who Peter is. I just thought it was a great joke, meta joke about how they don't own Spider-Man and they can't show him.
oh, well, I guess 2018 they would still know who Peter is.
They would. And
Yeah.
and it's
Oh
like,
yeah, it's definitely just because they don't know him.
yeah, and I thought that was just really funny. It's like, nope, can't see that.
Mhm.
But I I love that it also just somewhat implies like, by the way, Cable's thing, it can hop universes, why not? Like he
Yeah,
can just go.
I was thinking
Yeah,
about that too. I was like, I thought it was just time travel.
yeah.
Well, no,
Um
oh yeah, because yeah, never mind. Yes.
uh I also we're gonna get to a lot of things that I love about the film. So let's kind of skip to, the birthday party. He's in the TVA. This the whole running joke with Thor and like why was Thor crying was so funny. And dude, when he runs up to the camera and he's like, "Suck it, Fox! I'm going to Disneyland," and like headbutts the camera,
And he
amazing.
grabbed the boom mic out
Yeah,
of it. I actually just liked the whole sequence of the suit up, and he's like, "Your guy's a predator." And then honestly, I think the funniest line to me, I don't know why it stuck with me so, is when the guy, he's like, "This guy's into it," and then
yeah,
it's like, "Who you calling?" He goes, "HR," and he goes, "Oh, does your wife work in HR?"
right.
I don't know why that line got me so much.
Uh, so then we get into the montage of him trying to find the right Wolverine, which thank you for doing that. Like, first of all, the joke with the comet accurate height, hysterical. We got to see the Age of Apocalypse outfit. We got to see I forget what issue it's from, but when he's on the X Cross, we got to see the
Old man
original suit,
Logan,
Old Man Logan, the original suit where he fights the Hulk and
the Hulk.
the Hulk. And dude,
Do you know which Hulk it was? I couldn't really make
it
it. Do
was
you think
it
it was
was
just
Ruffalo.
it was supposed to be Ruffalo's?
Yeah. And
The brown suit looked incredible. I thought
it
I
did.
was kind of sad they didn't just use that one the whole time.
It looked great. And dude, Henry Cavill's cameo, first of all, so good. And Cavill, you could tell Cavill's having a good time. He loved doing it.
He
But
did his arm
also
lock.
that so see, I missed that. And it got pointed out to me later that he did the arm reload, and that's so
Yeah,
fucking funny. One,
that's how he unlocks the claws.
yeah. Two, the joke that Deadpool makes when he just goes, "They're gonna treat you so much better here than the shitheads down the street." Like I'm like, that is so the timing of that is so funny and
Now, my thing is, it was that a popular casting
fan
or
casting, yeah.
anything? Okay, it was. I was not familiar with it, so I was just like, that's random. I'm into it, but
Yeah.
it was random. That is a pop. That was like a okay, like a
What
Reed
did
Richards,
yeah.
John Krasinski thing.
What did your theater think of that one?
I think it took a minute for people to sort of process.
Hmm.
Like I look. It honestly, it took me because I was like so not familiar with the casting and also just like registering the look, and I was like, oh shit, and I was like, that's Superman.
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
the fact that in the credits he's listed as the Cavalrine is so funny. But
that's pretty good.
so then eventually we get to the Logan that we get to.
Mhm.
And the joke about the suit, obviously, where he's like, "Oh, it only took him 20 years." And then you get to one of my favorite lines in the movie, which is Deadpool saying, "Welcome to the MCU, by the way. You joined at a really low point."
At
Like
in
that.
the TVA, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And that's when like the story kicks off and you go forward from there. That's when we get to Johnny Storm. And then now moving on, Cassandra Nova. I said
I
in my
okay.
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, and with the whole TVA sequence, you get sort of the projection forward of the movie, right? They talk about anchor beings, and you
Yeah.
get treated to the guy from Succession, Mr. Paradox,
Hmm.
who I think was very British.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you're in the void, you get to Cassandra Nova. And again, I thought the performance was excellent. I just think that the character was kind of shafted.
Mhm.
And however, there's a moment later in the movie, and it's one of my favorite moments in the movie. And it's when the Wolverine is talking to Cassandra Nova, and he says, "Your brother would have torn a hole in the universe to find you, and he would never forgive me if I sat here and just let you die." Like I really felt the weight of that. Like one, Hugh Jackman's just, dude, this is maybe I'm being recency bias. Top three performance as Wolverine.
Mhm.
Like Logan,
I'd say top three, easy.
Logan X2, this. Like maybe top five. Like,
Mhm.
Origins is bad, but he's good in it. So like I'm trying to like think like I'd have
Yeah,
to
but it's
really
just a
think about it.
different character. The
It
ones
is a
we
different
named that
character.
it's you're watching him play the same character at different stages of his life. This is just a
Mhm.
different experiences, different
I liked that
character. Yeah.
I like that this version of Wolverine has the pain that our Wolverine had, but this time the pain was his fault.
Mhm.
I thought that was the most interesting aspect of the
Well, see
character.
that, and that's where I sort of got confused with the Wolverine. About like I felt the grief, I felt the pain, but then during this sort of reveal of his past and everything, it's sort of like okay, there were humans who managed to one up all of the X-Men and it's his fault because he was drunk at a bar.
Well, he also says that he heard them call for help and he didn't go.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick up on that. But
Hmm.
but then it just sort of like would he have made a difference if a human was able to take out Storm,
Right.
for example? That
Hmm.
I think that and not sort of seeing it vision, I feel like that sort of took me a little out of the story, if I'm being honest.
Hmm.
And just like there was all like this whole build up and it's like you were drunk at a bar and somehow humans killed a bunch of mutants.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think what's also important to keep in mind is like he also came from a universe where like there were Avengers and X-Men. And like, it's
Yeah.
maybe the X-Men in his universe, they aren't the X-Men we know in
Hmm.
terms of like strength. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff to go into that. It might have just been that they got outnumbered.
Yeah.
And
And
maybe
that's fine. I think it was just more of a like they told me a bunch of stuff, but if this is your character's main motivation and the arc I'm supposed to watch, I feel like that was a show type scenario.
yes, but to take a line from Deadpool, do you know what that would have done to the budget? But I mean, it's a solid point.
Hmm.
I but in terms of the character, like I really liked what Hugh Jackman was doing, and watching the movie, I was like, this is why he came back. Like he got to do like a completely almost different version
Oh,
of the
his
character.
his whole monologue
I was just
in the
about to
in
get
the
to that.
car was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And like and that's why I was also so surprised like when I see a lot of the criticism of the movie being like, "Oh, this is a soulless corporate movie." And I'm like, "Soulless?" Wolverine told Deadpool, "Motherfucker, I wish I could say that you die alone, but it's God's best joke that you can't die, and that joke is
Mhm.
on all of us." That was amazing. Like he's
To,
in
to
pain,
to
like saying that.
to Deadpool.
Yeah, yeah, and he shut him up. He shut
Yeah.
Deadpool up.
No, that's what. Yeah.
And even on Ryan Reynolds, like he has a couple scenes where I thought he did great. Like when he's talking to Happy Hogan, and he actually gets serious for a minute, and he's like, "I just want to I want to be part of something important. Like I want to be a part
Mhm.
of something." And then later when he tells Wolverine, like, I've waited a long time for this team up. Like you really feel what he's saying.
Mhm.
And eventually, we go through, we get the nice pool, which was funny but did get aggravating. Like I'm like, all right, this joke is going on too long.
I think that's how I felt about the Deadpool core just
Hmm.
as a whole.
Yeah. Uh, and then of course we get to the other amazing cameos in the Void, and we get Elektra, which I thought
Mhm.
Jennifer Gardner did a good job. We get Blade, which dude, I was so that was the only one where like my jaw was like, oh, like I gasped, audibly
Yeah.
gasped when Blade showed up. And then we
Because
figured,
oh god.
I was saying, we figured Channing Tatum's Gambit was going to be in it. I was still really happy to see it, and I thought he was hilarious in the movie.
Mhm.
And I loved Deadpool's joke of like, "Who's your dialect coach? The Minions?" But
Yeah.
and of course Daphne Keene, who I
Mhm.
thought also did an excellent job. But before I like send it over to you, describe to me the different pops. Like again, I wish I could have saw this opening night, but describe like the different pops of each cameo as they came in.
Uh, I think that I think people that knew Elektra were on board. I feel like some people didn't
Hmm.
register it. Um, Everyone got hyped for Blade. Blade was a big one. And then Gambit, I think it was because that one is sort of very similar to me, at least, to like the Nick Cage cameo in The Flash,
Yeah.
where it's like you have to kind of know a bunch of stuff. So the people that knew, like, oh, there was supposed to be a Channing Tatum Gambit movie that never got off
Hmm.
the ground that he was trying to develop for 10 years,
Hmm.
I think got excited for it. But I don't think it was without applause for people that didn't, because again, they're like, oh, Nick Cage Superman,
Hmm.
cool. They're like, oh, Channing Tatum, I know him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the way they did the character with the bit was really funny. And
And
I really like in my heart of hearts, really hope that that was the accent he was going to do for the movie and was not just an exaggerated bit for this.
yeah, who knows? But I also think he would have been game if they were like, hey, make the accent like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But also, uh, I also loved his meta humor when they were like, we're all the people that didn't get a second chance, and he's like, or a first chance, like just like those little like bits he would
Yeah.
throw in. Um, but dude, I
Blade's like, I don't like you. And he goes, you never
never
have.
did. Yeah, it was so good. And like, but
Um,
I like the references to the other characters too. Like I loved when they were like, yeah, they killed Daredevil, and Deadpool's like, I'm sorry. And Electra's like, that's fine.
don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, so I kind of forgot going in a while back. It was reported about Jennifer Garner,
Hmm.
and that just totally escaped my mind. She showed up, right? And I'm like, okay. And then when I assume it was Daphne Keene X-23 that picks him up in the car, and I was like, okay, oh, probably this is where like
Hmm.
Electra will fit in. And then Blade walked out, and I was like, they got motherfucking Blade. And then I was like, who else is about to fucking walk through the store? And as soon as I saw the card, I was like, oh, they're doing Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have to see him. As soon as the card came out, I said, here we go.
Hmm.
Yet I didn't know who was gonna. That's where I thought maybe, and what shocked me too was, and like you said, blowing up the budget. But I was genuinely shocked that there were not a lot of the OG Fox X-Men. James Marsden, Charles Xavier
Hmm.
was a big one for me. Either version of it, especially when you
Yeah.
have your villain of the story is his
Cassandra
sister.
Nova. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was just an interesting exclusion for me.
Yeah. And for me, what I liked
Mhm.
is because I was surprised there weren't more, but at the same time, I do think that they realized like, the more we blow this up, the less focused our second act is going to be.
Yeah.
And I liked that those characters all like kind of had a purpose. Like, yeah, you could have switched them out for any character you wanted, but they still had a story purpose in helping Deadpool and Wolverine. And I like the characters they chose, and I feel like what they are also doing is like this is just a theory. It's just like these are the people that we really don't care to have in Secret Wars. So let's
Mhm.
put them here. And then in
And no
Secret
Daredevil in
Wars,
Secret Wars then.
no. And like and let's take for Secret Wars, like we'll get the OG X-Men, we'll get the, like all that stuff.
Because I just think it would have been an interesting. I'm not trying to rewrite. Just an interesting from
Hmm.
my perspective, right? You have this Wolverine who lost his team, and they show up, and now you have Cyclops, Storm, and Beast
Yeah.
as this, and X-23
Hmm.
as this rogue team, and now he has to deal with seeing his team variants of them,
Hmm.
and then ultimately having that choice right at the end of do I go and save the universe or do I stay here where I have a chance with these people. I just feel
Hmm.
like that would have been a nice little sort of bring it back together with it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, and ultimately too, like, I honestly think that Paradox could have just been the villain. Like, it felt like they needed someone ruling over the void, but like, I enjoyed the performance of Cassandra Nova. But like, ultimately, I was like, did we need this? Because I feel like Paradox could have just sustained on his own.
That's fair. Regarding like the Wolverine arc, like yes, that would have been a very good way to kind of get him to stay in the void.
Yeah,
But to me, I really love where the story ended up with, especially with where Wolverine ends up. And I feel like I'll take getting to that point than getting he
well,
just
I'm not
stays in
saying
the
he has to
void.
stay in the void, but he's then faced with the choice of do I stay with the void and have my life here, or do I make my original team proud and go deal with something greater and save the.
Yeah, it's a decent point, but I also think that, and this is, just
No, yeah,
opinions,
yeah.
but I also think that, you know, it's that cop out, like, oh, don't worry, you have a version of your team that's all alive.
Hmm.
And, here they are. You can have them. I think if you were going to have the team, you would have to do it to where he can't stay. And it's
Yeah.
like that's, hurting him, growing that character even more. And I loved what they did with um X-23. And I
Mhm.
love that campfire scene as well. That was from the trailer. It was really good. And obviously we see like Elias kind of eat them all. But first of all, good for Hunter B-15 showing up in this movie. That was really fun to see. One. Two, hell yeah, she's running the TVA. Three, she straight up says, like, I think you guys are going to be needed again to Deadpool and Wolverine, just in case. And
Hmm.
then I like that Deadpool was like, hey, there's a group of people that helped us. And she straight up says, she's like, I'll see what I can do. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's a weird, like, I kind of thought that they would all be back in the Fox universe where they end up, like the Elektra and Blade, like they would all be
Yeah.
there. I was like, oh, that would have been funny. But also, let's talk about
No,
that.
it's definitely setting them up to possibly have that return for
Yeah.
Or
But
Secret
also a
Wars.
couple
Yeah.
things. One, back when Loki first aired, you and I had the discussion of like, are they setting up the Void to be Battle World? And they totally are.
Mhm.
One, but two, dude, I love that they didn't end up in the MCU. Like,
Yeah.
and as someone who desperately wants them to be in the MCU, I love that the story they told was the right story of like
Mhm.
they go back home and like they give this new Wolverine like a new home. Love it. Love
Mhm.
it. And I was like, if you'd have told me beforehand, like, hey, they don't end up in the MCU at the end, I'd have been like, that kind of sucks. Seeing the movie, I wouldn't change a single thing. Like, it was the perfect, perfect ending for that. And I
I was just
real
sort of sad the original Deadpool's kind of just bookended. Like I like that whole supporting cast.
Yeah, yeah, but I also
Yeah.
feel like there
Yeah.
was a world where they weren't going to be included at all, and I feel
Yeah.
like they fought to have them included, period, and I'm glad that they were.
Mhm.
Um, I also think it's going to be really funny, like if they do get brought into Secret Wars, like it's going to be at a point where him and Vanessa's relationship is like finally growing again, and they're going to be like, "We need you," and he's like, "Fuck, I have to
Yeah.
go." But
I okay.
so there's one thing that my brain, my head canon is doing that I think
Mm.
is really funny. That I'm not sure if the movie intended to do this, but this is how I'm reading it. And it's when they introduce the concept of anchor beings,
Yeah.
and Paradox pulls up the timeline, and it's like all fucked up. And he's like, "See what's happening to your world? Like when your anchor being dies, it like messes up everything." And I took that as a continuity joke of like, did Wolverine dying, did the anchor being dying at some point in the future cause like
2018
you,
or
but like cause like you know all of the continuity discrepancies that like Days of Future Past had to fix, and then even like
uh
more like with Caliban showing like I'm like I took that as a joke that like look at how fucked up your timeline is, and it's like oh because like everything's messed up there. Um, that
his
was just
laugh
me.
when Deadpool's like, I'm the anchor being,
Yeah.
and him just laughing so hard. I was like, that's
So oh go ahead.
yeah, uh I lost it. Oh, I will say, just going back, I thought all the action was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed by the Fox fight.
Yeah, because it was very
It,
shaky in the beginning.
it was very shaky in the beginning. You know, you bring Elektra, you bring Blade back, and I felt like I didn't get to watch them have like a whole sequence the way like Channing Tatum's Gambit did. Now,
Hmm.
granted, Blade has three movies and Elektra has two, and Gambit has zero. But still, if you're bringing them back and giving me a giant action scene,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me see that a little bit. And was it Vinnie Jones's Juggernaut? Was that him playing it
It
again too?
wasn't it wasn't him playing him. No.
Okay, gotcha. I couldn't tell
Hmm.
from the actor perspective.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but
I was just gonna say I like that Juggernaut's helmet was kind of the thing that they needed because I
mhm.
love the conversation of like, we just need Magneto. He's dead. Fuck. Well, I'm sure his helmet is still here. She melted it. Fuck.
Well, it ties back to Deadpool 2 when you have that version of Juggernaut,
Hmm.
and he's talking to the kid, and he's like, "So you wear that helmet so that your brother can't read your thoughts?" And he's like, "Yeah, but he's in a wheelchair, so even Stevens or something." But like they reference
Yeah.
like that is directly the power, so it makes sense from a story perspective that that would also kind of disable Cassandra Nova's powers.
Yeah.
And we do get to hear, and it's very reminiscent of the "I'm something of a scientist myself" line from No
Hmm.
Way Home. But man, was I happy to hear Blade just say, "Man, some motherfuckers still trying to ice skate uphill."
Dude, I clapped.
It
I
was
clapped
so
at a press screening. It was embarrassing.
it was so poorly placed, much like the "something of a scientist might help one." But man, I was like, you know what, they get a pass.
They 100%.
Um,
100%.
I will say too, going back, I really like the Deadpool corpse fight, sort of the tracking shot that
Yeah.
goes through it. Uh, one you get, I think it was confirmed Blake Lively is the voice of Lady Pool,
Hmm.
and you get Matthew McConaughey a little bit there in Cowboy Pool. The floating head was Nathan Fillion, which I
Yeah.
did not realize. Um, but genuinely, and again, just sort of stumbling it, but man, did they land it when Peter shows up, and they're all just so excited to see Peter. And they're like, yeah, every Deadpool has a Peter. I was like, you know what? They get a pass. That's pretty
Yeah,
fun.
that is funny. Yeah. But yeah, man, I like the post credit scene too. I thought it was a great movie. Not
Um,
perfect, but I think it deserves the success it's getting, and it's probably the best movie they've done since Guardians 3.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, quite good. I definitely want to go see it again. It's
Oh,
just a fun time.
I'm absolutely gonna see it again. I might see it two more times just because like the fun factor makes it easier to rewatch. But
Absolutely.
but yeah, so did you have any final spoiler thoughts before we conclude?
No, I don't think so.
The only thing I'll say is they're obviously setting up like that the MCU has an anchor being, and I'm guessing that it's Iron Man, and that's going to play a role into Secret Wars. Is that that like the 616 anchor being is now dead, and
Yeah, that would probably make the most sense. I could see it maybe being a Wanda.
maybe
Um, I would actually honestly say Spider-Man, but no
they
way
don't want to rely
Sony.
on Sony.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not relying on Sony for that. So I mean, Iron Man makes the most sense.
Iron Man makes most sense, but I will tell you, I think from a story perspective, it'd be really interesting if it was Strange.
Mm.
That would be a really interesting.
Yeah, but do you think Marvel's gonna go for interesting? I mean, we just brought back Robert Downey Jr. as Doom. He's very
Hey,
clearly
hey,
he's the anchor being.
hey, we're going to talk about that on tomorrow's episode
Well, I guess what
while
they
we're
did
wearing the
set up,
same clothes on the same Zoom call.
while they did set up though, I mean, like, because Deadpool and Wolverine kind of semi become the anchor beings, right? Is
Hmm.
sort of what they sort of established there. So, I mean, there's also no reason that it can't be Iron Man and Cap, and that because Iron Man's dead and Cap's alive, it's causing
Well,
disarray.
I didn't even really get that they're supposed to be anchor beings unless I missed something because they also said that like, oh, it normally takes like tens of thousands of years for your universe to die after the anchor being dies. But but yeah, no, I like we said, guys, we really liked the movie, although we do have some problems with it. What did you guys think? Spoiler thoughts of Deadpool and Wolverine? Please let us know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to catch our episode tomorrow about the Hall H announcements. See you later.